All right, guys, welcome in here. It is another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show. It is powered by WagerTalk.com. I'm Joe Raineri. He is Ralph Michaels. 30 college basketball games on tap here tonight. Plenty of action going on. And, of course, got to review exactly what happened yesterday, as it was a limited card, Ralph, but, still brought some upsets. Still brought a couple of head-scratching games along the way with it.
Yeah, it's okay to talk about these teams too. They when you bet one of these teams and they win, it pays the same amount as betting a Duke or Kentucky.
Isn't that the truth?
Again, let's just start off with Evansville. I mean, they have been a head scratcher. We've seen them on the pooling the biggest upsets, and we've seen them getting upset as well. Mm-hmm. So there was only a couple upsets by teams and a half or more, but Evansville at the top of the list. So, and it's the way they got upset. I mean, getting upset is one thing. Losing by 26 points is a complete another story. So, they're a team that I've actually just laid off because, Jacksonville State's a decent team, and it's not as if though Jacksonville State's horrendous. They're off to a tough start this year, but they were a 24-win team with Ray Harper last year, and didn't make the tourney and didn't go to another tourney. But again, you have a 3-7 Jacksonville State team playing at home against a team that should beat them, and what happens? They run them out of the gym.
Not sure UC Irvine should be considered that big of an upset, but again, they were certainly, they're part of that, I believe, a 4-team tournament happening right now, and Kent State was a lot of people's favorites yesterday, including the betting public.
Yeah, there were a few guys that, I talked to that were on Kent State, and, it's a game Irvine controlled pretty much the whole game. They got out, and they pretty much had a double-digit lead throughout the game.
Yep, worried about them, dominating the boards, which is pretty much what they did. And then, of course, you had North Carolina Wilmington there with Mercer and Marist Morehead State. Huh? How about another one of those? One of those games. I'm sure we're going to get to the overs here in a second, but wasn't sure we were going to get that many points in that game.
Yeah, it's one of those games where it was closer and you got some free throws at the end. So,
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorites. And, of course, speaking of those, we've got, of course, the largest covers, both against the number and the spread here up on the board. And voila, there it is. Marist Morehead State, right? 29 points there, 89-62. How about that line? Look at 2 points, 29, blowout.
Yeah, again, there's these teams, and we're going to talk about this more. There's a couple teams on the list there that are now starting to get kids back that weren't eligible the first semester or first quarter, depending on what your colleges are. And, we'll talk about it later, but it kept me off a game today because it was, it was a game that I like New Mexico against Grand Canyon, and Grand Canyon gets a point guard back who was going to start for him, who was a transfer from St. John's, and they get back a 3-year starter who was academically ineligible, and he should be back tonight. So there's going to be some changes where perhaps some teams that didn't play as well as we thought they might, like a Grand Canyon team, that if you see improvement, why in the next couple games.
Yep, and then, of course, some of the top performers around the league there yesterday, Ralph, and Tristan Jarrett, Jackson State, Southeast Baptist, Stanley Davis, Morgan State, and there it is, UTEP showing up against NC North Carolina A&T.
Yeah, they have the game against Irvine today, and Baum did have a great game, 26 points and 7 rebounds.
Yep.
And you look, some guys that we're not going to see very much with the light card, but hey, we give them their due.
That's right.
You see these guys with, double doubles with Stanley Davis and Morgan State, and guys like Stevie Jordan from Ryder, 23, 4, 5, 6. Again, I love those 6 steals. If you can get 6 steals, you're playing a Marist team. You're not playing a lower division team. Yes, Marist isn't a great team, but you're still playing a competitive game. And when you have that type of point guard, it's a special kid.
Yep, and of course we got a couple of primetime games coming up today that we will feature. Oklahoma Creighton we'll get to, and another interesting one, Temple taking on Miami here in South Florida. So an interesting matchup there. But of course, we'd like to talk some TNA, some trends and angles on any of the 30 some odd games that are going on here today, Ralph. So I know you pulled one out, man. I know you got one. So before we take a look at the market, talk to me about a trend and angle here.
Yep, couple over-unders, couple sides. Denver's a team that struggled away from home. It's not a very long road trip playing Northern Colorado, but they are 4-15-1 against the spread. And Eastern Washington, a team that I rode last year, continues at home where they've covered 10 of their last 12. They're taking on Nebraska Omaha. Couple totals play. San Francisco 15-4-1 over under their last 20 games. And Marquette, you think of Marquette, you think of a team that's pressing the pace and fast-paced and the leading scorer in the country, or who will be the leading scorer in the country most likely. They're 3-11 over under at home.
Interesting. Before we get to the market, I was wondering, were you shocked by the first half that Texas Tech had yesterday, coming all against Southern Miss? They are coming off of that big victory over the weekend just a couple days ago. I guess they were poised for a letdown spot in the first half, weren't they? Because they certainly took care of business in the second.
Yeah, they needed to win by 6. If you watch that game, Southern Miss looked like the better team. Yep. You still have, I'm going to mention it, another kid who's injured who they certainly need. Jamius Ramsey still hasn't played. He played the first 6 games, and he's been out since that time. So he's a kid that when you see that he's back and you're reading the Lubbock papers, he's going to make a difference in that team.
Couple of taking a look at the market here, seeing some of the big movers and shakers, some of the games that a lot of people seem to have an eye on, at least at this particular point. Ralph, we'll look to one game here that seems to be getting a lot of love. It's going to be an early game here this afternoon, guys. You'll still have time, but Iona and Princeton here. Iona, not the same team that they used to be, obviously, or that we're used to talking about, certainly come tournament time. Princeton just they just don't play any defense. But we're looking at virtually a pick-em here, Ralph, but the total continues to inch up. And not exactly two of the best shooting teams here, and yet the total continues to climb up to 141.5, but by far the biggest bet game on the board.
Well, you see, as you said, both teams struggling. What a difference, though. Iona has only played 5 games. Princeton's played 9 games. So, do we really know what this Iona team is? They haven't played a game since December 4th. I don't know how many teams have played 13 days between games. I know it's only a handful. So, to me, I would not be on that line move playing over for you have a poor offensive team that hasn't played in 13 days.
Yep, and another interesting game here on the card, getting some movement too. How about Purdue taking on Ohio? And this game opened up -10 for Purdue, but it's going the other way, Ralph. A lot of people seem to think that that's way too many points. It's down to 8. The total continues to creep up, though. Opened up at 125, up to 128 now in this game between Purdue and Ohio.
Well, anytime you get a team like the MAC who's playing decent and they get one of their Big Ten brethren to come to their facility, it's going to be a huge game. That those kids are going to be excited in Athens. And Ohio has done nothing wrong. I mean, you're 7-3, your losses on the road at Villanova, and neutral losses against Baylor and Utah. Granted, they have no good wins, so they're another team where, they only have one win against a top 300 opponent, and that was Bonaventure in the opener. So we don't know what we have. We have 24-point loss, we have a 13-point loss, and we have a 14-point loss to your top 3 teams you've played, and then you've beaten everybody else. So they're one of those that are still a question mark for me.
Interesting, too. How about Stanford, San Francisco tonight? The Gales there at 9 o'clock. Stanford opens up as an 8-point favorite, but All the love is going towards San Fran here. It is now down to 5. Total holding strong at 144, Ralph, but seems to be at least a 3-point swing here towards San Francisco in this one.
Yeah, I agree with the swing, too. I think the line opened because you have a 9-1 Stanford team, and, your only loss is to Butler by a point. But then when you look, they only have had one other real game that they were tested, and that was Oklahoma, where they caught Oklahoma on an off night and won by 19. So I am a believer in the San Francisco team. The question obviously was their coach left and is now at Washington State. So Todd Golden, who was an assistant here, took over. So was he going to be able to carry that momentum that the Dons had? And he has. He lost at Hawaii, and he lost at that game against Arizona State, where they only lost by 4 points. So they've played well.
Yeah, and one final one I'll throw your way here, Ralph. What do you think of this? Florida Providence game here tonight? Because that too getting an awful lot of love. 7 p.m. tip-off. Opened up as Florida -4. Continues to creep up as more and more money continues to come Florida's way. Also, the total seems to be creeping up a little bit from 132.5.
Well, Florida, to me, is a team that's on sale.
Mm-hmm.
This was a team that was AP number 5, AP number 6 to start the year. You have All-American candidates with Kerry Blackshear. You have a coach who can coach, and they just have, lost to some good foes. They lost to Florida State. They lost to UConn. They lost to Butler. They're a team that when they start getting it together, to me, they're going to be a play-on team. So I have no opinion in the game. I think the line looks cheap for a Providence team against a Providence team that's 6-5. With losses to all 5 of their losses are to teams that were ranked 81 or worse. Mm-hmm. Rhode Island, Charleston, Long Beach State, Penn, and Northwestern.
All right, and let's talk dogs here on the card here, Ralph. Were there any particular underdogs on here that you saw that you might be leaning towards here?
Yeah, we talked about it. We talked about San Fran, and I excuse me. I'm a believer in this team. They're playing really good offense. The problem is they don't defend the 3 well, and that's where they got into trouble. Stanford has hit the 3 well to start the year. So, while I lean San Fran, it didn't make my card because of the opportunity. Stanford may get hot from the 3-point range.
I'm going to go with an interesting one here, Ralph, that I think it's got letdown written all over them. But North Florida is going to be taking on Florida State in a game where they're laying 20 points, Florida State. I think it's just way too many points because the Ospreys not bad. 13-5 against the number in their last 18 overall. They're 8-1 in their last 9 on the road and 5-1 against their last 6 against opponents with winning record. Florida State, not exactly a covering machine. Certainly after coming off a cover here, they're only 2-5 against that number, following an against the spread win. So I think 20 points is a little too much there to be laying. I get it. Florida State's good, but I don't know. They ain't 20%. They ain't 20 points good against the pesky little North Florida team.
Well, especially because it's going to be a game where they really don't race out and they don't score a lot. So you're saying that a team that just played Tennessee, Purdue, Indiana, and Clemson may just not be looking ahead to a North Florida team?
A little bit. They might breathe a little bit here tonight. I'll take the 20 points all day long. All right, Ralph, talk to us here about any sort of situational revenge spots, anything on the card we should know about.
Well, a situational spot, and I will let our people know that games that I have up at Wager Talk, and it's on UTEP. I've mentioned numerous times I like these little 4-team tourneys, and then you look at Irvine's schedule. Irvine played a lower division foe on Saturday, so they're now playing their 3rd game in 4 nights. And this UTEP team is a legitimate team that, I have as the better team at home, only laying 2 points against a team that's playing 3 games in 4 nights.
couple of the marquee games we talked about, guys, that will feature here tonight, and one of them has to do with a team that it's a bit of a head scratcher here this year with Oklahoma. Not exactly the best shooting team early on there. They've had their ups and downs, but we've got a Big East matchup here, Big 12 Big East here with Creighton taking on Oklahoma. Total right around 153, 152. Creighton laying 3 in this game here, Ralph. What do you think about this?
I went back and forth. My line was right about that line. But, when I look at the eye test, I just think Creighton's the better team. They're obviously excited to be hosting a Big 12 team in Omaha. McDermott knows he always has his team ready, already knocked off Texas Tech in overtime in a neutral setting. You already knocked off Nebraska, who we've seen maybe isn't as bad as we thought after their win in the Big Ten this past weekend. And then, Oklahoma, Creighton's off. Creighton played December 7th, and they played one game last week. It was Utah, Rio Grande Valley. They weren't tested. They won by 30. And Oklahoma's coming off that Wichita State war on Saturday. So for them to go to North Texas last week and then on Saturday go to Wichita State and now play another mid-major in their dome, if I'm Lon Kruger, I'm telling the AD, what the hell are you doing having us go to Wichita State and Creighton back-to-back games? It's, these kids, they live to knock off these Power 5 conferences, and they have to play them in back-to-back games.
Yeah, Oklahoma sometimes gets a bit too obsessed with shooting threes, and the problem is they're not very good at it either. They only shoot about 32, 33% from behind the arc. The problem is they're going to fall behind, and if they fall behind, they're going to start loving shooting up those threes again. This game could get out of hand and away from them in a hurry. Creighton a little bit more disciplined as far as I'm concerned. Plus, they couldn't buy a basket in that Wichita State game. I mean, they've been so inconsistent shooting the ball, and yet Creighton has had no problem shooting the ball, has no problem being consistent scoring. So I might lean the over, but I would definitely lean Creighton in this spot as well.
Yeah, you look at Oklahoma, and this really is a second season carryover from having Trae Young there. Mm-hmm. Prior to Trae Young, they used to, be a disciplined team and play defense. And Trae Young came down, shot the ball, and these kids all said, well, look what he's scoring. And
let's do it. Yeah.
It seems to me that they haven't made that transition back from the one and out of Trae.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. There's only one Trae Young there. And one of the other marquee matchups, how about Miami Temple here tonight? Barclays Center to play the Air Force Reserve Basketball Hall of Fame Invitational in Brooklyn, New York. And Temple, I can tell you one thing. They're going to bring some defense here, Ralph. I think they're a top 20 team in defense this year, at least in as far as adjusted efficiency goes. Man, it's hard to score on Temple any which way you cut it. I don't know that this Miami team, it's a 1.5 point Temple spread there, 141.5 is a total, but I don't know. Does Miami have enough firepower to get past this defense?
Well, you look at it, and they've played one good game against one good foe, and that was when they played Illinois on the road in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. I am not sure. Miami is a team that I've misread a couple times early. I went against them here on the show back against Florida Atlantic, and they ended up covering. And then I believe they covered. Then they beat UCF and covered against those in-state teams. I think Temple's going to have the crowd edge. Temple's losses to Maryland and Missouri, teams better than them. Temple's wins against Davidson and USC, teams similar to Miami of Florida. I lean Temple, and I think these kids in Philly, be it Philly, still, it's New York City to them. It's a big deal going, making that ride to New York City and playing in front of the lights and the skyscrapers there, where Miami, to me, it seems it's going to be more of a road trip. So I do lean Temple, the kids from Philly in this.
That 81-79 win for Miami against Illinois, by the way, they shot 10 of 18 from three-point, over 55%. That ain't happening here. Neutral court. Temple doesn't I don't think they have scored 70 points yet in a neutral court game. I do think defense is going to be the key here. I lean the under, Ralph. I think the under here, 141.5. I don't see either of these two teams being able to light either each other up there, certainly from a shooting perspective. So I would definitely look to the under in this matchup.
You know, I was talking to, this is going back to last year, and I think I was talking to Greg on Sports Grid. We were doing a March Madness segment, and he was talking about how in New York, where they're playing this game, the lighting is different than other big arenas, and even when they're playing, the under in this building is a positive play. I think there's a couple points advantage when you play the under here, just built into the line, because they're basing the line on what the history is and not playing in this venue.
Love it. All right, best bets time here, Ralph. Over 30 games on the card here, a little bit of everything, some exciting matchups. Which way you leaning here tonight?
Well, as I said, UTEP is one of my plays at Wager Talk, and I have 2 plays total, and I'm going to go ahead and why not just give the second one as well? And it's Northeastern plus the 1.5 against Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan plays as much zone as anyone in the country, with the exception of Syracuse and Merrimack. Rob Murphy is a disciple of the Syracuse zone. They don't stretch it out as much as Syracuse. So if you shoot the ball well from 2 and 3, you can beat Eastern Michigan. Northeastern, is a team that is number 3 in the country in 3-point percentage, number 12 in the country in 2-point percentage. I just see Northeastern being able to score, and I don't think Eastern Michigan's offense can keep up with them.
I think it's going to be an interesting game here tonight, Ralph. We had talked about it a little bit earlier, and I don't agree with the line move, so I'm going to back the under in this Iona-Princeton game. I do lean Princeton because I do believe Iona is just nowhere even remotely close to what we're used to seeing from them in recent years. They've got to find some sort of shooting on this team, Ralph, because they can't. Their shooting is a little bit horrible. Now, Princeton has struggled on the defensive end, but they have been able to put up some points at least with some consistency here. So I would lean Princeton to win this game, but I do think the under, especially when you're talking about a Tigers team here, a Princeton Tigers team that I think they ranked 346th in field goal percentage defensively. It's a good thing that Iona can't score because they can't defend, but I do think we'll probably be under the 140 mark at this point.
Well, again, another game at the Barclays Center, so you're doing the double dip, double header.
Yep.
And when you look at Princeton, I mean, they have played the number 44 toughest set of offenses. So you're going from a team that you look at what they give up and you go, wow, their defense isn't good. But then you have to put it in perspective. Well, they've played the 44 toughest slate. And, Iona comes in about 200 as far as their, 180, 190, 200 as far as their offensive efficiency goes.
Yep. It's an interesting card tonight, guys. Over 30 games, plenty of opportunities for you guys to profit, of course. Would invite you to head over to wagertalk.com. Make sure you check out Ralph's plays there at Cal's Sports page, at wagertalk.com, also on Twitter, at CalSportsLV. Make sure you're following him. And then, of course, make sure you are subscribing to the channel here at Wager Talk. Come back and join us again tomorrow. We'll have a full recap of everything that happens tonight. Plus, we'll get you ready for the day's college hoops action ahead. It's plenty to go on here. We're just getting started in the college basketball season. So, Ralph, good luck with your plays tonight, my man. Enjoy the action, and we'll talk again tomorrow.
Talk to you in 23, Joe.
You got it. Another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show powered by Wager Talk. Get there today, guys.